Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in today. Hello, Connie. Good morning
Good
or
morning.
afternoon or evening, whatever time anybody is consuming this knowledge. What is good with you, Connie? What can I celebrate with you today?
Yeah, what can I celebrate? Literally, this week has been a really good flow. I will tell you that, like, it's been a packed but like fruitful flow, not something that was just back to back to back that was like craziness. Yesterday was just a nice kind of reset day. So I'm going to celebrate that.
Hey, I think that sounds like a cool idea to do like a reset day on the Thursday instead of a Friday when we're currently recording on a Friday. But I think that actually might be a really cool idea to be the reset day is kind of Thursday, and then if you want to do a back to back on a Friday and really kick off your weekend to like be productive, then you
Yeah.
have an opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah. So I'm celebrating that Thursday was an awesome reset day. I'm ready for a full pack day on Friday and then an awesome weekend. So I'm like, okay, that felt good. That I'm here with new energy.
That's awesome. I love that lip color on you, by the way.
Thank you. Sometimes I'm like, do I do just the natural glossy look? And today I was like, no, you're just going to do some power matte, like metallic red, and let's just rock it out. Yeah.
I love it. I might actually really like the combination of is it a green tone that you're
Yeah.
wearing for your
Yeah,
shirt?
exactly.
Those two together, fabulous on you.
It's working for me on a Friday.
It's working for you any day of the week, any day of the week.
Oh,
I
that's
love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on the Live Fearlessly vlog. I'm super excited to dive in and have you share more about your story around fear and what that looked like for you and your experiences that you've had, and to give the viewers some, you know, not just life experience, but also the knowledge and the tools that have maybe supported you and giving them some direction. And just really grateful for your time today. So thank you.
yeah, no, my pleasure. I'm excited to dive in. And again, I'm just such a innate learner and sharing and best practices, and everyone has their own life experiences that we can learn from.
Yes, that's what we're here for. I love
Yeah.
it. We learn and then we turn around and we share it and we educate people on how they can do it faster and better and be stronger in through growing through those things
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
really excited about this conversation. So I'll give you guys a little background on Connie before we dive in a little bit more. Connie served in Gannon University and she was as the assistant vice president for the student engagement, which sounds like a big like take on. So that's awesome. And leadership development, before opening Switchboard Networking Boutique, which is located in Westminster, Colorado, in September of 16 when that was formed. And then she has a second location that is in Texas, and that was formed in 2019. Her passion for intentional engagement strategies, business development, and adult learning theory was launched from the Dallas and Fort Worth chapter of the Meeting Professionals International, and a membership organization for corporate. Oh my gosh, for corporate. You guys, is it Friday? I
Yeah.
don't know. Association and independent meeting planner, where she was educator director. So all kinds of fancy things that this woman is, and she's going to share about her life experiences with us around fear and how those things showed up for her and how she's worked through them to be the person and the leader that she is clearly today. So Connie, before we dive into talking about fear and your experience, what is something that the viewers can learn about you, that's an interesting fun fact about Connie?
I love it. It's so kind of, I don't think people would realize this, but as a young girl, my grandfather, my papa, he was very, very clear to say, you have a lot of energy. I was like, the whole family knew that. And I was in dance, I was in cheer, I was in poms. That was a great way to kind of get that extroversion out. But he actually took me under his wing and taught me to golf. And
Oh,
so like that is kind of an underlying, like, just it fills my soul to be on a golf course, just me, the club, and the ball. It's the only time I'm quiet. It's the only time for 4.5 hours that it just feels like it's just me completely being me. I'm able to shut off the rest of this world. And so I don't think a lot of people like really associate sometimes with like, oh, golf is something that Connie just loves to do and has played her entire life. But that is something that I hold very close to my heart and make sure that I build that in for decompress time, and honestly to honor those Sunday mornings where Papa Pete would pick me up at 6 a.m. and I didn't have a choice. I was out on the golf course with him playing 18 or 36, holes. And so
Wow.
yeah, so I just honor that. Like that taught me a ton as a young woman. And I never regret those hours and hours and hours of failing, and hours and hours and hours of going, I really don't know if I'm like great at this. And so, yeah, so that is something kind of like random, I would say with myself. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would definitely not have made the connection of like golfing as more of a calming thing, because it is literally like if someone with a lot of energy turns into that, like me, I would be like talking to someone in their backswing or
Yeah, I'm like, literally, it's the only time I'm like, when else can I go? Like everyone meditates, right? Or like,
yeah.
their yoga practices, their Zen, standing paddleboard classes. And I'm like, I've tried them all. The only place I can get in that flow is the gosh darn golf course. Yeah.
That's amazing. That is so cool. So a challenge for anyone that's listening that is like, I have all this energy and I'm not really sure what to do, and those things haven't worked for me. Maybe try golfing. Maybe that's something that
Yeah.
you can pick up. I think that's really cool. And how awesome that you got to make the memories
Yeah.
with your papa about that.
Yeah.
So how old were you when that started?
Oh, that was in middle school. So it was like fifth grade. I remember him taking me, and then like my whole family did not golf. He picked it up way later in his life, and it's something that he just wanted to instill in me. He definitely said like, this is something that, I want to make, he'd say that I want to make memories with you in this way. And so
Oh,
it's just a really, really cool, like I reflect back on going, yeah, I will never not golf. Right. And I learned so much about being so frustrated, learning something like that, but being like, nope.
so many different skills that you could unpack in
Yeah.
what you learned
Yeah.
about patience
And
and,
how much we
you
learned
know,
about each other without ever talking. We'd play for
mm,
4 hours without talking once, and just learning the patience and learning, just him giving me the space to just like swing at the ball 19,000 times and never him raising his voice, never him just be, okay, next hole. Like I learned so much through just the practice of that.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It sounds like
Yeah.
I might need to go try
Yeah.
golf. And
So I'm like, if everyone like me, I'm like party one, have failed at meditation, yoga, I'm like 3.5 minutes and I'm like, okay, I don't do it. So if that, it may be an outlet to explore.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Very cool. So and is he still with us or?
Yeah. So he passed away, yeah, about 8 years ago. And so I truly like for my own family traditions and just for my own self-care, like I incorporate a ton of golf. One, to help other women, right? I think it's kind of off the cuff to be like an older, woman to be like, let's just go and golf. Like, let's just go and
Yeah.
like, check that out if you've never
Unless
done it.
I'm driving a golf cart, I wouldn't
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Or there was like, oh, just putt putt. And I'm like, oh, a little more than that. Um, and yeah, and then just for that to be like something tradition in our family to keep that tradition. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a great share. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing that story with us.
If anyone wants to go golfing or travel and go to a golf course, like I'm in.
That's amazing. So Connie, go ahead and tell us, you are located in Colorado?
Yeah, so I am located in Denver, Colorado. I split my time a little bit per kind of talking about opening up a second location in Texas. And so, but primary, where do I kind of put home base in? It's Colorado.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, great. That's great. Okay, so we have a little insight on, how Connie already is like coping and figuring things out. Like this is a great tool for her and that brings her joy. So I want to just make sure we unpack that. Like find something that brings you joy that you can kind of, you unplug when you're going golfing as well. So that's a huge thing too, especially right now in the unprecedented times that we live in, right? So that was great to start out with. So let's dive in and talk about when is a significant time in your life that fear held you back from living your life fully, and dive in a little bit and tell us about that time.
Yeah, so kind of like even in my bio, I come from a very traditional academic background, like in a loving way, in my mind, in my 20s, that was going to be the trajectory, right? Like I was on the fast track of schooling, of mentorship, of additional opportunities that I was just, willing to take the time and take the challenge on, to really like move through the higher ed system, work as a professor, serve as an administrator, learn all the nuances of what that, even system looks like, so that that would be my impact in this world. And so as I moved up, if you will, in the higher ed system, the less and less I felt like this is the right fit for me. And that I was terrified. I think for 3 years, I never said that. I never said that to a mentor. I never said that when a new school year would kind of roll out, because I knew I was always kind of pushing the envelope. I really did not enjoy all the red tape, and I wanted the pace to move faster. And, as I felt like I was moving further up, I was not impacting, students' lives or staff lives, because I was just in back offices doing reports, and another report, which is not my skill set. And so I think there was like a window about 3 years where I knew in my heart of heart, this isn't necessarily the best fit for me, but I was fearful, one, to admit that, two, to explore that, and truly go like, I'm going to let people down. They have poured into me. And if I don't go be a president of a university by X years old, I have failed. Like I just kept playing that out. So after doing a couple years of like holding that in and getting my dream job, my dream job at Gannon University was it. It was a blessing and a half. It was everything I've ever wanted to work towards. I was working on my doctorate there in higher education and organizational leadership. But it was a 2-year contract. And that was really where I was like, I remember, if I don't shift now out of this, I'm going to be 60 years old, retiring and going, I remember that conversation you had with yourself and you chose to stay in this. So there is intense fear for me to go, I'm not renewing my contract. I'm moving back to Colorado. I'm starting my own business. I'm an innate entrepreneur. I'm a solo income, individual. I have no significant other paying into safety net to, oh honey, we have a nest egg to, fall back on if, this doesn't work out. But in a beautiful way, to be honest with you, that level of confidence in myself to articulate years and years and years of like, I'm not ready to articulate that to my mentors. I wasn't.
Right.
I was like, I'm not ready to jump ship. I was like, I'm not. But to get to that point, to go, do I believe in myself enough? Do I bet on myself 100%? Because that's all I have when I shift out of this. And to feel that fueled till this day. I can stand here right now and I still get like, oh man, like that type of feeling to go, I believe in myself enough. And what I feared more was actually getting stuck in something and limiting my potential, burning out really fast, never being able to create a lifestyle. Yes, the income would have been there. Yes, some of the travel, yes, impacting, individuals' lives at a macro level, but the way it was happening and the way my self-care was depleted, I was like, this is not how I'm going to choose to live and serve. So that window of time was a gem. So then I was in 2016. And then I always just think like, wow, I bet on myself. And then another kind of like whammy happens, right? So I opened that up, Switchboard Networking Boutique in September of 16. And then was ready to kind of start settling down, right? Like I've always been education, travel. I don't have time for a significant other. Like, I just want to do life.
I do me.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I never want to look back. And like, I want that decade just to be able to go like, who was Connie Kircher? So I sat back and kind of was like, okay, this next decade in Colorado, I want to kind of put roots in. Had fear about opening up my heart to a relationship. Like that was not something that comes naturally, not something I'd rather much more build 15 more businesses before I go on a 15-minute date. In all honesty, right? Like, I think I just got nervous sweats talking about like, okay, but like building a business, I'm like, oh, what's the next one? Let's do it. No fear. Let's go.
Because we expect to fail in that. Like, we're like, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, it's like we thrive on like how we fail at that kind of stuff. But relationships, that's definitely not something that we want to fail at.
Yeah. And it has all this like pressure, right? Like for me, when we talk about fear, it's pressure. Like I kind of was reflecting this morning, like, what does that actually mean to me? I'm like, it feels like pressure. And so I put a lot of pressure on these first couple, like, dating experiences, and I'm ready to settle down. Well, I found an amazing man. We were moving towards, kind of long-term commitment. Well, then he suddenly passes away 8 months into our relationship. So that was in 2017. And when I think about your question, because I want to give that framework of like, I was on smooth sailing. Life was going to be
Right.
great for the next decades in higher education. I pivoted, believed in myself 100%. 8 months into opening my business, no backup plan, completely invested my savings, my time, my vision, right? Like this is my baby. And then opening my heart to, okay, I'm ready to like explore another part of my life, and having a sudden extreme loss. That fear for 2 months did paralyze me. I didn't know which way to move. I mean, that's honest. Once I started taking the pressure off to go, it doesn't matter where you move, just start moving. That was a great takeaway for me to go. You don't have to jump back into dating. You don't have to jump back into entrepreneurship. You don't even have to jump back into higher ed if you don't want to. Like, just start moving. That window of time had me learn a lot of lessons of what just forward movement can do.
Yeah, that's huge. The tiny movements, and that, I mean, I love that you're giving the background and then leading to like how one thing is like, okay, yeah, it's fearful to make the decision to move out of your dream job for one thing,
It was,
what you
yeah,
thought was the dream job, right? Like that's what you were
yeah,
striving for and you got it. And then it was like, do I really want to keep it?
yeah,
And then to make the decision, right? First, we need to be aware of if it's really what we want. And then it's the understanding of like truly
yeah.
what happens from here. And I love that you kind of thought about, when you're 60 and like looking forward and envisioning like, no, this isn't actually what I want. And I think that's a really cool distinction to think about, like how that transition happened, because then you had no choice but to rely on yourself and your self-confidence to make the decision to go really for all of it,
Correct.
to make the decision to be fully committed to yourself. And
Correct.
then, yeah, opening that up to commit to someone else and then having them suddenly leave, like,
Correct.
wow, 2 months. I mean, that's still like, for me, that's like, wow, that's still, how
Correct.
did you feel about yourself mentally during that time? So it was 8 months between leaving this job and into the relationship. That was the time frame. Did I get that
So I moved back here summer of 2016, right back in
right? Okay.
Colorado. Opened up Switchboard. Him and I started dating like literally like the month after I opened up
Oh,
Switchboard.
wow.
So we dated for about 8 months, and then
Okay.
he passed in June of 2017. And what I remember reflecting on, so if kind of the question is, and then reframe this, if this is not where you want to go, was I don't want this to define me, but I cannot just avoid this. Because what I
Yeah.
have learned is, especially with, that's why I give that backstory. For 3 years, I, true of true, knew I probably shouldn't be on this trajectory for higher education. It was not what I wanted for my self-care. It's not how I wanted to build a lifestyle, but it was some great things of service and things like that. But I held that in for 3 years. And then I finally was like, okay, like, capacity is there. I need to say something, and I need to move, and it needs to be just something that I cannot keep sitting in. So when he passed away, I was very mindful to go address it. Do not bury this, because I
Yeah.
think my initial reaction was fear of losing my business, fear of losing our house, fear of losing, not only did we lose a life in this world, but I lost my significant other in this world. Like, there were so many things that I just remember going, do not bury this. Like, do not just go back into work, act like everything's okay, hold space for everybody else. Because when you did that in higher education, look at how many years it took you to unravel that. So why would I not learn from that lesson and go, this is not the lesson I want to be learning in 2017. Not after opening a brick and mortar, not after, leaving everything I ever knew, in my professional life, and then opening my heart into a very vulnerable space. But I remember going, do not let this define me. And I know that this will work out. I don't know how, though. So I didn't get stuck on the how this would work out. I got stuck on, in a good way, take care of you, take one step forward. Don't worry about the business. Don't worry about the pressure, the expectations, the, fears of what other people are going to think about this or not, right? Like, so I'm like, business coaching as my personal life is falling apart. How am I going to do that with my clients? Are they going to even respect me? I mean, all those things were just a mess. So I took 2 months and I reset. I mean, I grieved. I didn't work. I put out really clear boundaries to go, I'm going for a walk every day and trying to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And that was my self-care plan for 2 months to go, I need to be in this. I need to feel all of this. I need to be fearful through all of this. And then I truly said, August, Connie, is when you can start making some decisions. You don't have to do anything except take care of you and process this life-changing event.
I love it. So I'm like writing notes as I'm like thinking about the processes so that I can tell you guys what I'm unpacking from Connie's story here, because I want you guys to take your own takeaways from this too. But what I'm taking from this conversation is, right, we need to be clear and simple about our boundaries, right? With anything that's happening in our lives or happening for us a lot of the times, right? Like making clear decisions and keeping them simple, right? We clutter our mind with all of these big decisions that really we break it down to the really simple things. Did you eat today? Did you feel your body? And we can talk about this because we've both been doing the Live Hard challenge, and we know all about that, how important it is to be moving our bodies and feeding ourselves and doing those things. So Connie's talking about going for a walk and eating something, right? And like those are simple boundaries to know, like when we show up and we do the simple things, we're able to make more steps in the direction that we need to be. But really getting down to the basics when things are especially hard or difficult or uncertain in everything, and that pressure is there, like that's huge. Just know, make simple steps and decisions that aren't gonna hold you up, because that's where the frustration and the discouragement really comes from. And I wanted to point out as well that I think I don't know, this must maybe just be a misconception that I would think, is that, when you lose someone, I would like, my thought is that if I lost my significant other, that people would usually like give me an out by saying you don't have to do, like they don't expect you to move forward out of it. I don't know. Like my mind, when you were talking, I was like, it could very easily go the opposite direction, right? How many people lose someone and people are like, that you don't have to, no one is expecting you to get up and make the decisions and make the moves. Am I making sense with what I'm trying to say maybe?
Absolutely. And it was kind of like I had a mixed bag of some of that feedback, right?
Yeah,
like,
talk about relationships a little bit more around this time for us,
so
or
I
for
had
you.
a lot that I actually, and to be honest with you, it actually more frustrated me to go, you know what, it's okay to lose your business, Connie.
Right, that's what, like people saying like it's
no,
all right, like kind of softening you more
if
to
you
think like
go back,
no one's expecting you to come back from this.
Yeah. And it was like, it was an okay. And it was out of pure love and respect and all those things. But it almost fueled me to go, no, this isn't an out, like to that point, this is not going to define me. And then on the other side, I had some individuals kind of, hey, 2 months is a long time to take off of work. You're a solopreneur. What's the plan? Those questions were also out of love and respect. How are you going to maintain this? What is the game plan so we can support you? So I think in some of those transition pieces, I learned, if I don't articulate, hey, this is my timeline, August 1, I'm going to sit in this for 2 months. I don't know which way is going to be up. Just owning kind of that season where I'm typically so plan. So here's the 15 steps. It humbled me greatly to go, if I don't take care of Maslow hierarchy of needs in this crisis, there's no way I'm going to make any intelligent, grounded, aligned decisions. So I transfer that to 2020, right? So that was only 3 years ago in my life. I still have a thriving business. I still coach clients. I still feel better than ever, right? So fast forward 3 years. But I do say that 2 month window was set up for a foundation so that I could be here in the 3 years. So with everything kind of that unfolded in, earlier 2020, I literally kind of just took the same process and said, Maslow hierarchy of needs, unprecedented times. Didn't know if I was going to lose my businesses. Didn't know how my clients were going to be serving in this world. I didn't know how I was going to be, doing all things. So I literally, in a blessing, again, things always work out better than you could ever imagine and how they're intertwined. I just moved forward and said, I have intense fear. March 17th, 2020. I gave myself 1 day of grieving. I swear to you, I sat in my bed. I ate more ice cream than I ever wanted to admit. I bawled my eyes out until there was no more tears to do. I cursed more than I probably should ever admit to. Like, I did a 24-hour grief session. And I said, all right, next day, Connie, you're getting your small game plan of what you need to do, how you need to frame your communication, what time frame you're going to give yourself to reset a decision. Is that going to be in 3 months? You're going to see how things fall. You're going to see 3 days. So I think that's one transferable technique that's very concrete in my story about when fear, not if, when fear on a macro scale or on a very mini, to have a finish line to evaluate. And I didn't expect myself to be evaluating daily because I was so up and down. We so didn't know at the beginning of 2020 what this looked like. I so did not know where, losing a significant other, where I would fall. So to give me a finish line to go, I get to work through all that and then I can make a healthy decision. I think that's one of the most fruitful ways that I think I've been able to transition several times in crisis mode in my life that I think is a pay for it, honestly, in our time today.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it all goes back to, like you said, like feeling it, going through the process of being able to sit in it and giving yourself the permission to know, like, yep, I'm going to do this. It's the permission that we don't need the permission, but we do a lot of the times need the permission to say, you're cool to sit here and process it, like you said, and feel it. And then be able to assess and really own that season, and then be able to make a healthy decision about where you want to go from there and have that assessment. I think that is super key to everything. So I love that it's already shown in 2 times in what you've already shared with us, the process of what has been going through, what you were growing through in that time. So what other is there any other advice that you would like to give the viewers about moving through uncertainty in general and the pressure? I mean, you're giving us some great tips. Is there anything else? Like, did you do anything like tactical, like journaling your thoughts? That's a big thing. Or because I know you're kind of the non-traditional, right? You go golfing. So we know that. Is there anything else that you would
golf for, right? Great question. So again, for me, the way fear shows up is pressure. And it's typically 98.75 sci-fi.
How do you relieve your pressure?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you relieve your pressure?
Yeah, exactly. Is expectations of what is my family perception of this? What are the external perceptions of this? What do I expect of myself in this? So I think that the true takeaways, the ways to make that concrete is I set in motion, like, what do I expect of myself? That's it. And I had to keep remembering, if I let people down, I would have never been able to control that anyways. And I had to, in a very humbling way, if I wow people and inspire people, it doesn't matter anyways, in a loving way. Like, I'm not here to change someone else's path by force or by, making them see how great one step could be and learn from my failures. I'm here to model what I've worked through, see what's worked for me, be honest about some of my failures in those areas. And then I have full grounded, like, how do I do that? Is I put expectations of what characteristics I want to show up in today, not what I think the others expect from me. So I'm a big believer of, I don't journal necessarily the gratitude as consistently as maybe some of you on the call that, or I don't necessarily, write out every single feeling emotion. I'm a very strategic planning person, but the feeling and the emotional intelligence isn't always on paper. But what I do constantly is to go, how do I want to be Connie Kircher? What characteristics do I want to show up in times like this? What's the feeling that when others interact with me, I want them to feel positivity, lifted up, high energy. Wow, that woman walks out of faith every single day. I don't know how she does that. Those qualifiers, that's what I ground. That's what I reflect on every single day. Before we got on this time today, Connie, what's the energy you want to show up in? Because you get to create that, right?
Yeah.
So that's the tactile way of, I'm not letting circumstances externally, even in crisis and even just day-to-day mundane, let's be honest, right? Sometimes it's harder to choose our attitudes and our energy and our things in the day-to-day. And so I think that's a very great way, and it can happen at any time. It could be even just, again, a mantra to yourself to say, hey, how do I want to show up today? And I'm always responsible for the energy I bring in a room, always.
Yeah.
And so
It's
I
powerful.
hold myself to the highest standard to go, I never want to be that person that has negatively impact someone else's experience because of my energy.
Yeah,
That's such a core concept to me. And even full circle, I think my Papa Pete taught that. I bet that man was the most frustrated little sunshine on this earth trying to teach borderline ADD Connie on a quiet golf course, you know, trying to swing a golf club and just love me unconditionally and give me the grace over and over and over. He never showed that. He brought energy of support. He brought, hey, Connie may not be great at this, but like, we're going to keep encouraging her. So that's always been ingrained in me, is I'm responsible to not be the frustrated one or bring the negativity down, or I'll be honest about it, but I'll always frame it with like, we've got a solution. We've got this. Hey, maybe we need to sit in this for a little bit longer. But that is so, I think, important when we get into that pressure to go, all I'm responsible for is what characteristics I want to bring up today.
I love it. It always amazes me. Okay, this is episode like 79, I believe. And it always like, I should say, it never ceases to amaze me. I think that's what I mean to say.
Yeah.
How the interesting facts that people generally share at the beginning somehow is a thread that comes through full circle, like you just pulled it through for me. Because normally I'm like, you said that earlier. That was like the exact same thing. So it's super fun to hear, like literally what we talked about in the beginning. Our life experiences shape the leaders and the people and the modeling examples that we are, with the experiences that we have throughout our life. And we really, when we get down to it, it is setting our own expectations. We can only control ourselves and how we react or take action or don't. And those are choices that we make. So really setting those boundaries and clear expectations. And I love you talking about the characteristics that you want to bring in the energy, because I'm all about that. And I love the idea of instead of journaling like all of the things, but staying focused on those key things that you want to bring to your world. I'm going to adapt that specific piece specifically. So love to hear from you guys in the comments. Like, what is your takeaway from that? Let us know in the comments. Okay. So
love it.
My last like question to dive into is, I love projecting the future and like being visionary about that. So like 5 years from now, right? And especially in 2020, like 5 years from now, like in 2025, what's Connie going to be up to? Where do you see yourself?
Yeah, I love it. So I've always had this Excel spreadsheet I made in college in tabs. It was like old school Excel, not like fancy schmancy, like formula.
Okay.
You know, old school. And I built out every decade of a tab until I was 90. And so so isn't this like, it's crazy. So I'm 36 now. So I'm in the 30s tab, right? And I'm halfway through that tab. And so I chose to shift a couple things that I was actually looking forward to or planning to do when everything with COVID hit. I actually moved a couple things from the 40 tab over to the 30 tab, because I was like, some of these travel experiences, some of these things, but no worries, kind of can just, adjust the plan. So where I sit today, September 2020, the 5-year plan is truly twofold. One, to keep raising the bar of my self-care. I chose, to be very honest with you, I chose to let that go on a back seat so that education experiences, failure could just be maximized, to be totally honest. In my 30s and 40s, I chose to say, all right, you have exacerbated every single way of learning, of trying, of failing, of business, of entrepreneurship. Now these next decades get to be steady. And so for the next 5 years, increasing my different self-care challenges, a lot of that is going to be physical, right? So I'm like, how can I do more strength training? How could I push myself, different cardio activities? I'm like, I literally have not really challenged myself like that, except when I made that Excel spreadsheet and I was like, I don't want that to be all of my 20s. I want that to be later in life. Because I was like, I have a pretty good body. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I got a healthy body right now. Like, let me just see what happens in the my 20s, and let me get all this education under my belt. So that is absolutely, like, I know that that will equip and has created so much energy for me and stability that's going to be now a higher kind of baseline. Second, for kind of business and just holistic, Connie, to have more fun in what I'm doing to serve. I have chosen to do the foundational hard work and not date for 10 years, not travel for 10 years, have an extreme budget for 10 years. Like, I chose to synthesize 40 years of work and sacrifice, all by choice, to prep for these next couple decades. So I always say, I feel like I'm this Benjamin Button, like, you know, movie character, where I was like, I was born 80. And if you look at pictures, I'm like, I seriously look like I was an old lady at like 16, right? I was like, oh my gosh. So every decade, I'm like, okay, every decade I want to feel more energy.
Better.
Yeah, exactly. Every decade I want to feel, and on the external way, but also on the internal way, more grounded in, I've always had that energy. Be that. I've always, you know, wanted to serve my clients and have fun in that. So do that. So that's actually the 5-year plan, is with every new program I'm rolling out, am I having fun? Is this aligning to me being able to shed some of that just very structured, I'm sacrificing, that work has to be hard, pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality, and letting some of that freedom happen in my relationships. Connie, have fun. You don't need to set out the 15-year plan on 15 minutes of your first date. Yeah, right? Like, I'm like, oh, okay, check, don't do that. So like, that is something that I'm learning in full honesty. I think when people, you know, met me younger years, I always had some enthusiasm for life, but I was so nervous about doing it right. And now I've let go and just said, am I doing what's right for me?
Yeah.
And that's the 5-year plan. That's the 5-year plan. Self-care being a new standard for me. And then making sure that my relationships, particularly clients, networking, my family, new prospects, all those relationships are fun and filled with energy. And if it's not an alignment of me, and being okay with that.
Yeah.
So that's the 5-year plan.
I love it. I have to know. So you said you did that in college. Was that something that was part of like a class or something? Or
Great
why
question.
did you think to do that?
So I worked in recreation, and we had this amazing wellness director. And I think, honest to God, I was the only one that did it because one of my strengths is futuristic. And I think she just put it out there as like, you know, week 4 of your homework assignments for your freshman leadership wellness class was on every 7 domains of wellness. Where do you want to be at in every decade? So she sent us this template, and it was just one of the passive activities you could do in the class.
Yeah.
I have never, I'm like, this was gold. Like, I could have stopped college and just kept working on that Excel spreadsheet.
Right.
So that, when she told me like, hey, you get to design your decades, and it was like a passing activity. Like, if I look back on all the education and professional development that we have invested in, the first freshman class of just being this passive, like, oh, sure, do this Excel spreadsheet, it'll be a great activity, changed my life.
Have you ever trained on that?
Great question, friend. I think it, people have to gravitate towards that, because I will be honest with you, when I speak about that, it tends to overwhelm.
And that's my first thought. I was like, why? Like, what made you think to like project that?
But my gosh, but it was beautiful. Like, do I want boats in my life? Do I not? Do I want, like, I mean, you just got to kind of design with no pressure, with no expectations on that. So when I do this now with adults, right? That was early in my life. When I do that with adults, I think it's hard actually, because sometimes it's like, well, I only got 2 tabs left, and it actually shuts me down. And I'm like, no, like, you can realign the next couple tabs, right? The 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. So what I have found, and that's also why I stayed in higher education, is that was so monumental for me, that why did I stay working with the population 18 to 22? Why did I pay forward that to that population? So what, like, did I ever train on that? In my higher ed career, every one of my students that came in my office knew about this, and I paid it forward. So in my entrepreneurial career, I share it as a story, but a lot of times people are like, I can't even get 1 year out. I can't even think about
Right.
next year, right? And I'm like, okay, because it is a different way of thinking, but that's why it was so foundational for me to give that to those next couple generations.
Yeah.
That was hard. Like that was hard. I loved working with those populations, but overall, my time and my service was in that way. I was ready to move, to kind of some other
Yeah.
adventures.
Cool. Well, that's amazing. I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us. Super
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Make an Excel spreadsheet
Right.
every decade. It will change your life.
So cool.
Yeah.
So where is the best place for the viewers to connect with you? So we'll wrap this up and get everyone to connect with you and
Yeah.
continue this conversation because we've already got some amazing nuggets and this is awesome. So where is the best place to connect with you, Connie?
Yep. So twofold. The first would be Switchboard Networking Boutique's website page, which is switchboardnb.com. That's where we have our 10-day adulting challenges. It's where we have our prioritized warrior, experiences. It's where we have our professional and personal development kind of experiences posted education-wise, and also, how to connect with me for, again, just connecting or additional opportunities to collaborate. Second, to again see kind of what's unfolding in our communities will be our Facebook page. And we do have two. So if you're kind of Texas bound or Southern states, my encouragement is to check out Switchboard Networking Boutique Greenville, Texas. And if you are more West Coast baby and you are Colorado and kind of over, that will be just Switchboard Networking Boutique. Like our page, send me a message if you have a specific question on anything we talked about, or if any of my story resonated with you, and you were able to kind of, even translate or even make better something that I, have used or I've done. I love hearing that because I don't know all the answers. I know what's worked for me. I know what I've failed at in the past. And so I just kind of love hearing when someone's like, I've done this, and what about this way? And I was like, that's amazing. That's amazing, right?
Right.
So yeah.
That's how we learn, right? Taking our own experience, putting it through the lens of what someone else can educate us on and making it our own and
Yeah.
putting it through our own perspective. Like it's going to work better for you to do that anyways, instead of just copy and pasting what Connie did.
Yeah.
You look through a lens of your own life experience and make it your own. So beautiful.
And I think
Thank
to
you.
your point, yeah, I think to your point, like as we wrap up, to take and filter like your points, your reflections, what I reflect on, like take this and filter this and adapt this how you work best, right? Like
Yeah.
I just think that's such a great. Sometimes again, the pressure point, we feel like, well, so-and-so does it like this. Well, Rebecca, process it like this, but Connie, I'm like, yourself better. You will make the best decisions for yourself. And so I just hope that any of what we talked about today can be filtered to support that, not erase that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk to Connie about this all day, guys.
Yeah. And next week, well,
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. See, we kicked off Friday. Look at Rockstar. Like
I
Friday, we're
know.
cool. Let's do doing it.
I love it. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Love yourself, live fearlessly, make it a great day, everyone. And Connie, thank you so much for your time again. This was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time.